Hello, I'm Rob, and this is another results tutorial. Winter is coming, my friends, but before then, let's paint Robb Stark from Culminator Nuts, A Song of Fire and Ice. After giving the King of the North version 1.0 a base coat in black, I've decided to work on his robe, and for that I will be using some VMA US Blue Grey. Remember as always to thin your paints down with some water or other thinner medium for better looking miniatures. Want to win a $25 Amazon gift card? Stick around and learn how. And after giving our robe a nice coating of blue-gray, let's mix in a little bit of light blue and start picking out all the raised areas of the robe. Don't worry about spilling on some of those other areas we have yet to get to, as they will be easy to cover. One more highlight using the same mixture as before, this time adding in a little bit of pale blue-gray. You can see that this looks super bright towards the white spectrum, but don't worry, as it dries it will tone down a little, and then there's always the wash step to help push it down further. Here, I've decided that I'm going to give my cloak another layer of black. This was done for a couple reasons, neither of which really matters. But I like to leave bloopers in my videos for fun, so that you can see not to make the same mistakes that I do. And continuing on with our blooper reel, here you can see that I'm trying to pick out specific folds in the cloak with a black and white mixture. More towards a really dark gray. And the thought process was going really good here. It's the next part that kind of got away from me. And so after trying to layer in some of that darker gray, I realized that something just didn't look right, and I wanted to try and do something a little bit different, or take it a different path. Then I thought, what is a better way to ruin this cape? And I figured it would be adding more white to the black and doing a horrendous highlight job. Objective achieved. Moving on to some slightly better judgmental skills, I have mixed just a dab of black into some gold to start laying down my metallics for the sword hilt and the trim of the robe. Remember that most metallics do not like to work properly or go on properly, and one way to fix that is to just mix it with another color that covers well. Just do not add too much of these other colors, because sometimes it can really blow out whatever metallic it is you're working with. So with the gold, you just want to add like a brush tip or so of black just to change the color of the gold, but not to make it too dark. Then for the chainmail and all the plank mail sections, including the sword, I've mixed in a dab of black into some Vallejo Model Air steel and gave everything a nice base coating. So right before I started this project, I received in the mail the cadmium skin from Vallejo I had ordered, and I wanted to take it for a test spin. I think it did a really good job as a skin color. It covered the black super well too. My main theory was that I just don't think it's meant for the pasty white dudes that live in the north and don't get very many tanning days throughout their year. And onto the hair. If you've watched any of my other videos, you will know that I enjoy using the Game Color Earth for the mid to slightly lighter brown toned haired figures. Is that the right word? Haired figures or figures hair? I think it does a decent job. It gives good coverage, and it's not really too dark, and when you shade it, it doesn't come out super dark either. And back to that face, this time with some basic skin tone mixed in with the cadmium skin to highlight the nose, the cheekbones, and the chin areas. For the fur on the cape, I wanted to give it a nice, a nice gold undercoat, and so for that I used the heavy gold brown from Vallejo's extra opaque line. So here I'm adding some earth into our heavy gold brown to try and bring it closer to the hair color. I did this in a couple layers, and I think it retained that yellow pretty good, but it definitely shifts it more towards brown. And then after that, I added a little bit of white to that same mixture to try and lighten it up pretty good. And my main goal here is to attempt to keep it from looking exactly like the hair. I don't mind if it looks similar to it, but I didn't want it to be identical as to what's on his head. And after that, grab some white paint and start picking out the tips of the fur. Don't go crazy here. Remember, as Jack's Club's painting puts it, just the tips. So I came to the conclusion after doing the fur that it was quite too close to the hair than I really wanted it to be, and I wanted to try pushing it in a little bit different direction. And so for that, I noticed this brown paint that I never have really used before called Middlestone. I'm not sure what it's meant for, but it definitely has a green tone to it, though I was happy with the end result. To highlight the hair, you can take that same Middlestone and add a little bit of white to it. So remember, the best way to highlight hair on your figures is to take a top-down view and start in the center of the split of the hair on your figures and work your way out and down, as the hair on the top is slightly thinner than it is on your sides and looks brighter due to light hitting it. For all the leather sections, which include the belt, boots, and pants, I'm using some flat brown. This stuff covers black really well and has a decent rich brown color to it that leans more, that when it dries it's more of a more like a matte finish black or brown. For the armor sections, I wanted to do something slightly different than the normal, paint it black, paint some steel on it, shade it, paint some more steel on it format that everybody really does. And so I decided to create a gradient on the wet palette of black, steel, and blue, and then little areas of straight steel. The aim here is to put the blue steel towards the top or any upward facing items. The plain steel would be in the middle, and you're using the black steel to make sure the lower facing items stay shaded. Basically, this is a version of wet blending with metallics. This is also a great way to practice wet blending, and it'll help you later when you decide you're ready to dive into the non-metallic metallics. For the stone he's standing on, why not use something with the word stone in it, such as Stonewall Grey. This is a pretty vibrant color, but seems to dry rather matte. Just try not to get it all over the other areas, especially those fancy boots. Now, to highlight the pants and the other leather sections, I'm taking some of the original flat brown and mixing in a lighter brown. I think I've chosen here to use brown sand, and depending on how much you put in it, it'll lighten it up, but does not go too overboard. Just do your best to try and leave the recesses on the pants and just pick out those the little bitty squares. Now here you can add in some more of that sand brown or mix in a little bit of white to it to bring it up brighter, and just try and dab it right into the center of those little squares and leave some of the two previous colors showing here. Now, for the washes. For the face, I made a mixture of Army Painter red and blue and put some of that on there. Decided it wasn't quite the right color for me, so I added in some Army Painter Flesh Wash and hit it again, and it came out pretty much the way I wanted it to. For everything else on the miniature, I created a 2-to-1 mixture of thinning medium and light tone, and then added in a drop or two of flow improver. I'd heard a few months back from one of my friends that flow improver really helps the shade go into the recesses of the miniature more, and it really does. Also, the flow improver acts as a drying retardant, so it allows you to clean up your your shading in areas where you don't want it to. Just while you're working, either keep another brush, a wet brush handy, or take the brush that you're shading with, dip it into some water, soak some of the water off, and then go clean it off your miniature. And you can see here that the cape is not really working in my favor like I'd hoped it would, and that I'm going to have to start back over on that. So after letting that shade dry, I redid the entire cape in a gray mixture from, I just took some black and added a little bit of white, got it to the gray I wanted it to, put it on there, let that dry, and then I reshaded it with the same light tone that I did everything else. Now here you can see that I'm going back through with that exact same black-white mixture, and I'm starting to pick out the tops of the folds on the cloak, doing my best to leave areas in recess. So we can add in a little bit of more white to the mixture to give the higher ends another going over. After finishing this, I noticed that I probably should have given it another wash to better blend the colors, but by this point I was probably already a few hours into this miniature and my eyes were ready for some pillow time. Going back to the gold, picking out the cross guard of the sword and the trim around the robe. You don't have to pick out all the robe, just try and pick out those little knobby things going across it and the bottom section. And here we are with some straight steel. I'm going around picking out the highest edges of the plate mail. Just do your best to leave all the work that we did with the black and blue mixture in there, and just pick out anything that you feel that needs a little bit more highlighting with straight steel. Here we are, Robb Stark from A Cool Mini or Nots, a Song of Fire and Ice miniature game. So you want to win a free $25 Amazon gift card, good for your next hobby adventure? Be a subscriber or subscribe now, then leave a comment below on this or any of my other videos this month for a chance to win. Then you can use that card with my affiliate links below at no extra cost and help support my channel. You can also head over to patreon.com and sign up to be a member there, vote on painting projects, and win free minis or even promos. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, because winter is coming and you need to be prepared. Thanks for watching. See you next week.